So, welcome to the special birthday edition of the Lifeboat Academy Coordination Circle. Today is April 22nd, and it also is April's birthday. So, whenever you're viewing this, raise a toast to April, and and hopefully we'll try to figure out how to fit cake into the coordination circle at some point.
It's
So,
also Earth Day.
it is also Earth Day. Relative importance, we'll say April's birthday. But it's a beautiful Earth Day, and it's also the beginning of Passover. There's a lot going on. And we are here to do our coordination circle. And as is our custom, we start by grounding ourselves, by bringing the land in, by centering the land. And would anyone like to do a land acknowledgement, or shall I?
Go ahead.
All righty. Oh, I see. Um, well, I think as always, I invite you to take a deep breath in, feel the freshness and energizing quality of the air entering your lungs. And as you exhale, allow the weight of your body to press down onto the seat beneath you. As you breathe in again, feel the earth coming up to greet you and support you, matching the weight that you leave in the chair with the support coming up to meet it. Take a few more deep breaths in, and as you breathe in, be mindful of all of our relations, all of the connections and contributions that have created the air that you breathe, keeps you alive. And as you exhale, realize that you are contributing to that great mix, connecting with all of the plants and trees and other animals. And take one more deep breath in. And as you exhale, allow your brain to drain into your core. Allow your awareness to fill your organism and become aware of your place in the landscape. Cast your mind's eye to the north and think of the landmarks and the relations and the connections you have in that direction. And do the same to the east, thinking of the landscape and the landmarks and your relations. And to the south, in the direction of the noon sun, and to the west, in the direction of the setting sun. And become aware of the landscape on which you currently reside, and take a moment to think back to the many, many generations that have stewarded this land, have cared for it, have loved it, have found their sustenance in it, have celebrated it, have mourned in it, have buried their ancestors in it. All those generations going back to time immemorial, who have cared for and loved this place. And all those places around the globe that have been cared for. And in doing so, bring some gratitude to your attention for all the ancestors, for your blood ancestors, for the ancestors of the land where you find yourself now, for your intellectual ancestors who have pioneered thoughts that shape who you are. And in particular, make that positive obligation, positive commitment to being a good relation, becoming a good ancestor, to righting any wrongs, healing any harms, repairing any disconnections, especially to our indigenous neighbors who are still here among us, still struggling with the echoing of colonization and genocide. and for all our relations, both human and more than human. And on this Earth Day, may we be good stewards of the land and good relations. And when you are ready, we'll count backwards 3, 2, 1, and come join us back in the circle. So, with that, I have put together a little bit of an agenda. Find the right screen, and or I've leaned into our existing agenda and I've added a few questions for us. So today, in honor of Passover and the idea of liberation, I thought our check-in question could be, what is trying to get free with you, through you? And the circle, as I see it, is April, Roland, and me. And so, April, over to you. What's trying to get free?
Hmm. Some sense of being with the wind.
Hmm.
I'm not quite sure what that's about, but I have a strong sense of that.
Hmm.
Over to Roland.
Wasted energy so that it can go back into the world to be transformed into hopefully something more useful. Over to you, Ben.
Yeah, mine is similar. I think what I'm trying to free are old neural pathways, trying to overcome those sort of pitfalls, reactions that don't make any sense logically, but there they are, and they just keep happening. So trying to find a way of freeing myself from reactivity. And we take a moment to revisit our North Star. Why are we doing this? And I thought actually about the Lifeboat Academy driver statement, where we say there are lots of different ways you can think about the lifeboat, and they're all partly true. And so I thought we could go through and each share what is our favorite. The Lifeboat Academy is like a fill in the blank. And so I'm going to propose that we go around once and we can each share our idea, and then once again, where we can respond to what we heard. So, and always free to pass. And with that in mind, over to you, April.
The Lifeboat Academy is like an organism. Over to Roland.
Lifeboat Academy is like an organism.
Actually, I just put times two.
Times two. Well, so that's exactly what I was going to say, because it's always how I think of the Lifeboat Academy. It's a living thing, both in reality in my mind and also as an analogy. And I think that's significant because this is where we live, not the place, but in the way of being. And we are emerging from a culture that transforms living things into objects, and including the way we live, something that's saleable, something that's tradable. So the Lifeboat Academy is an organism, and we honor the sacredness of living things. So there. Over to Ben.
Yeah, mine's pretty close, which is I think of it as lately I've been thinking about it a lot as a kind of halfway house for people in recovery from modernity. And I think it's exactly what you're talking about, that not the way that we treat not just places and creatures, but even people as objects. And we treat everything as a sort of a transaction to be one, as opposed to a relationship to be experienced and nurtured. So yeah, and I think that also that there is something about recognizing the halfway house part of it. You know, we all were were raised and boiled in that the business as usual world, and that's deep down, and it takes a long time to uh you know, it takes a long time, especially because we're not even entirely sure what the alternative is yet. You know, we're still having to rediscover for ourselves what that healed way of being looks like. So that is mine. All right, so we've all had a chance to share. So one more time around, thoughts, reactions, anything coming for you, coming up to you for that from what people have said. April, over to you.
Um, well, what's coming up for me is not directly about the Lifeboat Academy, but it's about the recent evaluation that we were doing in a boardroom that used the metaphor of organism for the organization that was never completed, that actual exercise. And I was just thinking that that still lives in my head and my heart, and returning to that. So I guess just, that fleshes out the idea of a different institution, if you want to call it that, being an organism. And the more recent work that we've done with the organization has led me to understand that that's probably actually pretty accurate, and that people there could understand that. So it's not directly about the Lifeboat Academy, but it is about a way of working and a way of thinking. So a Lifeboat Academy is like a metaphor, I guess, for other organisms. Over to Roland.
I think that what we've come up with is an indication of the synchronizing of our minds, because the three of us have been working together for a while and have been working on these ideas, and it makes me look forward to and sort of spoiler, looking forward to reviving the lifeboat circles, and what we have in store that's new and special there, to see what comes up, what germinates. Over to Ben.
Yeah, and that makes me think about the um, lean into the process, and building the lifeboat is the lifeboat, and um, and how challenging that can be, um, to relax into. We just gotta, we keep plugging along, and there is interest and appetite out there, and but it's, well, like, like the event you're talking about, April, where we couldn't really complete that activity because sort of the situation intervened. And and how do we keep plodding along, doing what we need to do, and relaxing into, you can't push rope. And and you can make the invitations, and the invitations will be taken up when the invitations are taken up. So well, cool. All right. So coming back from the highest level, North Star, and starting to think in a little bit more concretely about what we're doing together. Um, we have, I think that the guilds have settled into a sense of where they're heading. And we still seem to be on track with that. And this, of course, will continue to evolve as now it looks like the guilds are starting to take on work that, some projects. So heart work and philosophy, we're discovering a tight connection, I think, with outreach and network. There seems to be a lot of going back and forth between those two guilds. And heart work is really, and philosophy is exploring the deep engagement. And I think also from me, what's kind of coming up is the philosophy part of it, the worldview part of it. How do we articulate that? How do we clarify it for ourselves and explore it? And the principles in governance is we really started with a focus on onboarding, and I think actually that might be due for a little bit of transition to whatever comes next, because we've done a kind of a first level of onboarding. And so now figuring out where that goes for principles in governance. For finance and legal, it is the focus on establishing the legal structure and trying to figure out how we close the deal and get the social mortgage. So that's still ongoing. Farm, food, and housing is really the focus on the game plan on the land. And it's that time of year where that's starting to happen, and makes me think of when an ice dam breaks, where it goes from, we're thinking about what we might be doing to, oh my God, we need to do everything last week. And so we're in motion in that area. And then outreach and network is really clarifying how we make the invitations, and how we can draw people in. So again, I think it makes perfect sense that there's such a tight connection between outreach and heart work, and sort of navigating how those fit together. And actually, really, I think that our annual plan is really kind of a restatement of that, um, with the added bit that on the farm, it's really on the land, on the ground here, it's really looking at that, setting up our baselines and getting first things first. And so that seems to be kind of what we have written in terms of our annual plan and seasonal plan. And so just take a moment to go around and see if there are any additions or observations or questions. So over to you, April. Thoughts, reactions?
Is it thoughts and reactions around the current focus and milestones? Is
Yeah.
that what I'm?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just realizing how important the social mortgage idea is to what's going on now and what will go on in the future. And I'm wishing I knew more about that. So there's something about that that's kicking around for me. Otherwise, I mean, I really like the sense that guilds are starting to understand guildness and being able to plan and start some activities together. That's something has happened to make that happen. That's good. Over to Roland.
I don't really have anything to add, since we'll be going through the guilds for updates. I think for the heart work and philosophy, I like that you put forward that the philosophy part is proving to be a place where there's a lot of liveliness. And I think that is the hard work and philosophy go together because it's the guild is finding ways to be able to keep the discussion around why we are, why the Lifeboat Academy exists, and why we're together, and keeping that alive. Yeah. keeping it alive. And, we were just talking about the Lifeboat Academy as an organism and that as a living thing. And its reason for being is also its reason for yeah, well, there you go. The hard work and philosophy is about the reason for being for the Lifeboat Academy.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just
And
wanted to add that. So over to you, Ben.
yeah, and the reason for being is what animates it. So yes, very cool. All right, on to reviewing the calendar, and let me just click screens. And all right, so we're looking at the calendar for this week and next. We don't have anything unusual scheduled for this week. It's a lot of the standard things. So we have a Hive Mind time set aside for tomorrow. We have a mentorship meeting on Wednesday and a podcast with Andy Wednesday afternoon, artwork and philosophy on Thursday, and finance and legal on Friday. And finance and legal will be meeting with the lawyers on Friday. So we'll actually be talking head to head with the lawyers and getting feedback on our draft articles of incorporation. And then next week, we'll have the same coordination circle at the same time. And then it'll be outreach and principles and governance on Tuesday and Thursday, a navigation session on Wednesday morning. And then we also have Hive Mind time scheduled for a set aside time for Hive Mind on Friday morning. So are there any additions or questions for the calendar that anybody has? April, over to you.
I have no questions. Over to Roland.
Could you remind us of how the Hive Mind time works? Is
Mhm.
it a meeting that is always that always happens? Is it someone calls a Hive Mind meeting? How does it function? How do
Yeah,
people participate?
it is a standing time that can be used when we need Hive Mind time. And so partly it is up to the coordination circle to decide if there's something we can't cover in the coordination meeting. Coordination is really meant to be a light touch. Does everything make sense? Is there a place where people need to have a conversation about stuff and we can deal with small things? If there was a bigger issue that we really needed to dive into, that we needed more time, then we could book that in one of the Hive Mind times. Likewise, the Hive Mind is also available for if, for example, we're talking about heart work and outreach, and talking about the 6 conversations. It might be that heart work and outreach want to use one of the Hive Mind times to have a joint guild meeting to talk through the 6 conversations. Or likewise, it might be that um, the guild in general says this is we're good, this is the right direction, but we know that we need to do some co-working time to actually flesh out the questions or the format, or do the nitty-gritty kind of planning. So then you could book the Hive Mind time, and we have them set there so that they mirror the existing guild meetings. So people generally have them. We've identified that these are times of the week that are generally available for people, so it just makes it easier to schedule a meeting. So that's how it works. It's really kind of a standing flex time that allows for more in-depth conversations. Does that help? Is that good enough? All right. And so moving on. Doesn't look like we have anything really to do with the calendar, so we can move into the guild reports. And this is an opportunity for each of the guilds to report back on recent activities, recent accomplishments, next steps, or any issues that you want to bring up for for the good of the cause. So, oops, didn't clean this out. So artwork, um, artwork and philosophy, who wants to do an update on that?
Shall I?
Yes.
We are meeting this week at our usual meeting time. So there have been no meetings or no conversations of note since our last meeting. We reported to the Outreach Guild about our proposal for joint offering of the 6 conversations potentially in the lifeboat conversations or lifeboat circles. But I will leave reporting about that conversation to the outreach coordinator or whoever. So
Who's unavailable today?
right.
Yeah.
So back to you, Ben, for the next guild.
Just before we move on to the next guild, do we want to say anything about the uh, uh, um uh, the 6 conversations is being solidified into actual dates now, right? But we've also got the idea of the book club.
Well,
Is
Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
is the book club, do we have any dates or any, I can't remember that we have anything pinned down yet for
we
that.
don't have anything. It's still an open,
Thank you.
and actually for the meeting this week, then open topics include the book club and 6 conversations. All right.
Thank you.
And principles and governance. We did not have a meeting. We were scheduled to have a meeting, but I was the only person who attended. So we will basically, there's no report from principles and governance. And I think that at the next meeting, it probably is worthwhile recapping onboarding. So doing a little bit of a reflection on what we have done and what we want to do next. So that's what is up for principles and governance, finance and legal. We will be meeting this week. So we have the meeting with the lawyers is scheduled. We have sent materials have been sent to Joey. But we haven't heard back yet. So we have a reminder going out or a touching base email to go out. And so next steps will be meeting with the lawyers, meeting with Joey. And then we have I think everyone in the finance and legal guild sort of simultaneously came to an independent understanding of how important it is to try to facilitate a conversation directly with Joey and Steph. And so that's that. Roland, your hand is up.
Yeah, did we also we changed the meeting days?
Following after this Friday, it will
Right.
go to every week. Or sorry, we'll have the next meeting in 1 week from this Friday, May 3rd, I think, maybe 2nd or 3rd.
Okay.
And then after that, it'll be every 2 weeks. But it was the particular Friday that we chose. There are 2 people that have conflicts that are on that alternating Friday, and if we go to the Friday in between, it takes care of those conflicts. So
And
it's a minor change in the schedule. It's still going to be Friday mornings every 2 weeks. It's just going to switch over by 1 week.
so we just have to, has that been changed on the calendar?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it won't happen until next week.
Thank you.
All right, over to farm, food, and housing.
The invitation to meet this week has gone out to the guild members. So there's no day yet, but likely Friday or Saturday.
Cool.
So that's done. That's it for me.
All righty. And then outreach. We met. Who wants to cover this one? I think we were all there. So
Well, let's do it jointly. We'll be like the outreach coordinator hive mind report.
cool.
And we ended up talking, I think, quite a lot about um, the 6 conversations. And from what I remember, it was agreed that it made sense to offer the 6 conversations framework as for the lifeboat, the reviving of the lifeboat conversations. And so the lifeboat conversations would actually be a series of conversations as opposed to just a single conversation, as a way of helping to build towards concrete action. That's how I'm remembering it.
And an email has been sent just today to look to get preferences on timing. And we talked about the options of doing the conversations every other week or every week, and the pros and the cons of that. The pro being that, kind of gets, it has there's an intensity to doing it every week that, allows the conversation to sort of move forward quickly and gets to the action. But the doing it over the space of every other week, if there's 6 conversations, so over 12 weeks, would fits in with a sort of a seasonal
Yeah.
pattern. And which also reminded me, we were talking about kind of doing a series of the 6 conversations with the eye towards it being a regular offering that could be used by other lifeboats to build, that we're basically testing it for ourselves, but with an idea of offering it as a tool that other developing lifeboats could use.
Yeah, and I think it's also an example of how the Hard Work and Philosophy Guild works, because this is opening up discussion to be able to sort of internalize and come to individual and personal understandings of what the Lifeboat Academy mission is. So the 6 conversations are kind of lend themselves well to that kind of discussion. So, and it's a beautiful example of how the guilds interact. So thank you to the outreach guild for joining the Hard Work Guild to be able to offer this. And it's also it is, we are testing it out for the Lifeboat Academy guilds, and it's also open to anyone else who's
Mhm.
interested in
Mhm.
joining us for this first test round.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, that was, but yeah, the idea is we want to focus on start with the people who are involved already and interested in the guilds, and that we can also at the same time open it up to people who are either considering building their own lifeboat or are in one of our sort of partner networks as a way of introducing people to what the lifeboat's all about. So it can do double duty. And in terms of action items, I think that the and I'm blanking because I'm focused on the 6 conversations, but I think we also talked about some other things at the outreach meeting, but I can't remember. But I do know that the action item, the email has gone out. Ronnie will be compiling the results of the email. So if you're watching this and you got the email, please respond. And then Ronnie will be compiling that information and will make decisions based on the feedback from folks. And then coming up very probably early May, we'll be starting the conversational series. So
So Ben, I just got the Asana thing for the Outreach and Network Guild, and I can't quite remember what these entries are, but if I name them, do you think you might be able to fill in the details?
sure.
So there's update on co-op guy.
Yes,
In
and actually that I just sent co-op guy is Jarrett. Oh, I can't remember his last name. Who is at the Cooperative Housing Federation of BC, CHFBC, which is the Federation of Housing Co-ops. And Pamela Woodlands is involved with both, because she lives in a co-op. So that was just about there may be an opportunity for introducing circles to CHFBC because the CHFBC has a sustainability initiative, a climate response and sustainability initiative. And Pamela was just seeing if there was some way that there might be a mutual support there. So that's what that is.
And we've already talked about the 6 conversation in the lifeboat circles. There's also an entry here on navigation sessions, schedule and invites.
Right. And I think that's yet to be determined.
Okay.
I think that if I remember correctly, we were thinking that it kind of makes sense that we would start the 6 conversations and then transition some folk to the navigating tensions. That there's, that there's there's a synergy between them.
And the last thing was what goes in the newsletter. So
And
I guess this is
that was determined and will be out, I think, tomorrow.
Yep. And
Yeah.
it's also an opportunity to put out a plug if anyone would like to be added to the mailing list for the newsletter to let us know.
Right. Yep. All right. So I believe now we've gone through all our guild reports, and we'll come back to the agenda items. Um, And the question is, do we have any items that came up either in the guild reports or other issues that would be useful to discuss in the coordination circle? So not a single guild specific thing, but anything having to do with coordination. So any ideas popping, anything that is on the list for you, April?
No. Over to Roland.
Well, I will actually remind, I think earlier April mentioned something about the social mortgage
Oh, right.
and wanting to know more. And so what does that mean and which guild does that fall under? I was thinking that, Ben has been recording a series of informational um, videos to add to the help desk. So is this something else that could be added to the help desk?
I may already be on the help desk. I'm gonna,
And is this actually also something that to link in with the finance and legal team in terms of the information?
I'm not sure how, I mean, the finance and legal knows already, and it's an intersection between outreach. So the other thing too that we didn't talk, or that's on the agenda for outreach, is reviewing the website and the existing materials. And it does describe what a social mortgage is on the website. And I I don't have a pen handy, but so Roland, just try to help me remember to look for whether or not the social mortgage information is on the help desk. And but this is one of the things, um, figuring out how to have a facile way of being able to direct people to existing materials. We've answered this question multiple times.
Right.
And so it's a matter of having it available in a way that we can kind of direct people to it. I I suspect it's already on the help desk, and it's just a matter of finding the right article. Um, all right. So since Roland, you were kind of bouncing back to April's question, I'm going to bounce back to you if there's anything that you want to put on for the top for discussion today. No?
Nope.
Okay. I have a topic that I don't know where it fits. So I'm going to bring it up, and actually, I think it's good to bring up in the coordination circle because then we can also figure out where it makes the most sense to discuss. And it's kind of, I'm going to put it under the broad category of podcasting. And it sort of touches on the six conversations and things like the social mortgages and the kinds of Roland and I, as part of our circle process in the morning, we keep coming up with some topics that are, I think, potentially interesting to other people. And how do we share these conversations? So in part, it is, I guess, a question of how do we um, how do we identify potential topics? Who do we involve in the conversations? And how do those conversations get shared? And it's kind of on the intersection of, of the sharing part feels like an outreach question. Um, some of these questions are actually kind of onboarding and governance. Some of these questions would be heart work and philosophy. Some of these questions actually are farm, like physical plan kinds of questions. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a hive mind topic. Um, Yeah, I'm not sure where it fits. And it's not a particular, it's not a well thought out idea. It's just kind of this, we continually have these experiences where we're having a conversation and we think this is the kind of stuff that other people might be interested in. And so how do we capture that and share it in a way that's actually useful? So those are my random thoughts on that. So I'll just go once around if there's any thoughts, reactions, questions, considerations, etc. April, over to you.
Well, I think it's really good to capture those questions. And it's almost like it's a parking lot thing where, you know, there's a running list that hangs on the wall that you add to as you realize that this might be useful for other people. Um, and yeah, I think not losing those kind of things that bubble up is really important. This is emergence, right? And then I think processing them in something like the hive mind is a good way to do it. And maybe that's the sort of thing that only needs being processed once a quarter or something.
You lost me on that. So,
Oh, I'm just thinking that these sort of things, you know, there needs to be a little bit of time to collect enough things to talk about as a series of topics and decide which ones to use, right? Or which ones to go into more deeply. So I'm thinking that wherever it is that that is dealt with, it wouldn't be every week or every 2 weeks even. So I don't know if it's a couple times a season that you want to look at that. And that's it for me. Over to Roland.
These things tend to come up for me anyway, sort of spontaneously. We're having a conversation, and I'm like, hang on, this is really interesting. So I pull out my phone and turn on the handy recording app. I've posted one already, maybe prematurely because I didn't ask anyone. I was just like, let's just try this. And thinking of them more like sort of like loose interviews where there's isn't really anyone interviewed, but it's just these ongoing sort of conversations that are interesting. And where the maybe the challenge that I have with this first one anyway is what do I call, like how do I present it in YouTube? What, what kind of title do I give it and what kind of description do I give it? Which is probably the more, for this kind of thing, it's probably the more important part of the making it public. Um, but then, should these be vetted? I was just kind of playing with making it spontaneous, just like every once in a while, oh, this is interesting, and throwing it on, and it having its own channel, sort of like
Mm.
that. I can't remember what I called the channel. I think it's either conversations or random conversations, or I could call it spontaneous conversations. But this is something I should talk to through with the outreach group. This is sort of the redirecting of my neural pathways from it's just us doing it to now we have guilds and processes. Anyway, so that's a little bit of verbal diarrhea about what I how I'd been thinking about it and treating it so far. So
mhm.
back to Ben.
Well, and that's, I think for me, there's a really strong desire for them to be spontaneous and not, um, well, it's the lifeboat as organism and not the lifeboat as scripted,
Yeah.
linear drama, where because they're coming up in response to actual situations.
Yeah.
And so figuring out how to allow, and I think it's also a question of engaging people because they're, one, I don't, and this is, I think we are, it's where do we have a conversation? Um, how do we make sure that this doesn't get ossified and doesn't become a big hairy deal when really it's about, and I think that I'm going to add to that. Right now, we are in a situation where we don't have a lot of activity on the property. We don't have a lot of people here on the property. But the interesting thing, the whole reason why I want there to be a lifeboat campus is because these are the conversations that come up all the time. And that are when people are here, no matter who they are, they come up. And it becomes these interesting sort of living dynamic um, opportunities of weaving together things. So I think that's what I want to give is people, I want to give people the impression of what it's like if you were here, working the way we work and how we process things. So doing that, like, what's the structure that we have that is enough that it makes sure that we aren't, tripping over our own feet, but where it doesn't become everything becomes
Yeah.
an approval process that has to, the
Yeah.
question has to get vetted and the invitation list has to get vetted. And then you have to schedule a time when you invite people. And then you have to, I don't want that. So, anyhow, and I think it's pulling myself back to, so that does seem like a hive mind topic. The not the actual conversations, but
But the
how do we create the container for those conversations seems like that would be because it crosses a lot of guilds,
yeah.
and so anyhow, that might be this might be a suitable topic for hive mind. Um, so I'll pass it over to April.
Um, the conversations you're describing are similar to ones that I've had whenever I've sat around a campfire. So maybe these are campfire conversations, and just by the very name, they're different than other times, but that there is something different that happens under those circumstances with the container that people will recognize and is specified in some ways. Over to Roland.
It's interesting. You say campfire, I hear kitchen table. These are the kinds of conversations that I have around the kitchen
Yeah,
table.
yeah,
Um, so like sort of capturing that spirit. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Back to me.
Yeah, I think so. I don't have, I was trying to think if there was anything else there, but there isn't. So yeah, over to you, Ben.
Well, and I've worked with groups where they actually have intentional campfire time, and I have not enjoyed the ones that I have been part of. And and I and I think that the difference is, and I haven't participated in many, so I really don't mean this to be a comment on how those work. Um, but the ones that I attended, what I noticed was um, there wasn't enough of a spark. There was a lot of randomness that didn't actually generate anything, productive. It was just sort of like little sparks that went off and, sparked here and then faded, and a spark there and faded, and there wasn't much coherence. Um, And those were also like, think that one of the differences was those with let's schedule a time and have this kind of conversation. And it's sort of like planned spontaneity, you
Mm.
know. I'm not sure that maybe you can't capture the lightning in the bottle because not every time that you sit down at the kitchen table do you have an interesting conversation, you know, and not every campfire has an interesting conversation come out of it, and sometimes they do. So anyhow, I'm feeling like maybe just in the interest of, you know, coordination circle, I feel like we can maybe put the hanger or the label on this of campfire slash kitchen table conversations and put that as a potential hive mind topic. Um, so that's my kind of proposal for good enough for now. Over to you, April.
Okay, that's good. That's good enough for now. Over to Roland.
Yeah, I agree. Putting it in a hive mind would be good. I could keep going on now, but I will save it for a hive mind. So back to you, Ben.
All right, well then I think we're set, and that brings us to the next part of the agenda, which is, do we want to have a hive mind? And we've got a time scheduled for tomorrow, like I said, the kind of the set aside time. Um, but I'm not sure that, you know, at this point, it has not become a habit of the group. And so if we were to schedule anything for tomorrow, I'm not sure that anyone
Yeah.
would know and have the time on their calendar for that to happen. So I'm not really sure. I guess I'm leaning against, and this also doesn't feel urgent enough that it warrants trying to schedule something. And at the same time, it would be nice to start to get back in the habit of having hive mind time because it's really good. I mean, we used to use it very productively to run through a whole bunch of sort of unresolved issues, weren't necessarily highly urgent, but we could get, you know, we could move through a whole bunch of things in a go. Um, so just a sort of random thoughts, I guess. I guess more less than more to a point. I am leaning towards let's not schedule anything for the hive mind tomorrow, but then I could be talked into it. April, over to you.
Um, I think probably tomorrow is too soon if we're wanting to involve more people. I would say schedule it for Tuesday next week, maybe.
It would be 2 weeks because hive mind is every other week based on guilds.
Over to Roland.
Yeah, I agree. Tomorrow would be too soon. And I'm wondering, is it too late to have something about a hive mind and what the topic is in 2 weeks added to the newsletter that's going out in the next couple of days?
Mm,
Because then it's sort of like, sort of, we're starting up the hive minds, and
mm.
we're having the first hive mind, it will be this date, and the topic will be blah blah. And yeah, sort of advertising it like that.
Yeah,
So it becomes an action item to communicate to the outreach
yeah,
coordinator.
yeah. I like that idea, and I think we can certainly pass it along and then see, you know, um, and if not in this newsletter, the next one, and that would still be, I think, in time for. This is why I understand the logic of going to bi-weekly newsletters and bi-weekly guilds, but this is the downside of it, is that if you don't match the cycle exactly, you're a month later before, you know, you get something out. Anyhow, I'm
And
good
as
with
long
that,
as
and I can communicate to Ronnie to. I doubt it would be a problem.
okay. And if it is, I think that we are not so busy and we're not so troublesome in terms of emails that we can also just send a separate email about the hive mind.
Yeah,
And
true.
I think that would actually probably be at this stage, it would be a good thing, more activity. So cool. Thank you for doing that, Ben, for passing on the info to Ronnie.
And just want to check in April, that works for you?
Sorry,
That works for you?
2 weeks from now?
Yeah, 2 weeks from now and trying to get something in the newsletter.
Yes.
Right, cool. Coolio. Well, then, we are oops, pretty much done. And I'm just gonna we have our sprint mantra and a chance to sort of check in. Our current mantra is guilds is as good as gold. Lean into the process, gentle discipline, and frequent reminders, and relax. Does anyone want to alter, offer a new mantra? Over to you, April.
I'm thinking in terms of bumper stickers now, which may not be the same thing as mantra, but something about social mortgage is the future. Over to Ron.
They look good as is. Over to you, Ben.
Yep, I'm good with the addition and I'm good with leaving them as they are otherwise. So, good. Then I guess we are done. And any last thoughts for the good of the cause? April, over to you.
This has been good, thank you. Nothing to add to that. Over to Roland.
Good week, everyone. And look forward to the newsletter for upcoming events and timing for guild meetings, etc. Over to you, Ben.
Yeah, I'm good. Hopefully we'll see people in the upcoming guild meetings and looking forward to the 6 conversations and what might spin out from some of those conversations. So onward and upward. So we'll see y'all when we see you next.
Great, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.